Welcome to the Invernadero Mind Podcast. I am your host, Gabriela, and I'm so happy that you're here. Invernadero is Spanish for greenhouse. It represents light, life, and a home for bright minds. In this podcast, I discuss hot present topics in today's culture, and our guests share their successes, challenges, and their journey in finding balance between chasing their dreams while protecting their mind and spirit in this fast-paced culture. In this inclusive podcast, we talk to everyone. Stay tuned and let's get the conversation started. My next guest is a low-waste blogger who shares her tips on how to reduce waste while living a mindful life. She believes in intentional living and applies it to every aspect of her life, from her blog Our Golden Haze to her career as an educator. We discuss current trends regarding low waste, and she gives us her perspective on how to build a habit to decrease consumption and waste production. She believes in baby steps, and most importantly, in doing it with true intention. I love talking to her, and I think you'll find her perspective very refreshing. Let's welcome Nicole Hasenbein. Hello, Nicole. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for doing the interview.
Yeah, of course.
How did you become interested in sharing content about low waste and just in general, living a low waste lifestyle?
Yeah, so I think initially when I created an Instagram account, I initially thought, well, I just want to share my life. I want to document kind of my journey of becoming a mother.
Yeah.
And then I just thought, well, okay, but that's not really serving. I mean, yeah, it's great to share about my family and what I'm doing, but also I want my account to be a resource for working moms who may or may not strive to be low waste or maybe work towards zero waste. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to, I'm now kind of realizing that it's really important to have a purpose, and I don't want to just, as much as I like a curated photo, I think also it's important to recognize that there, what are the bleeps or real content as opposed to aesthetically pleasing. Mm-hmm. Because that is pretty to look at, but at the same time, I want people to be whoa, she's a working mom. She's striving for goals outside of just being a working mom. Yeah. And she wants to, educate people or just moms in general, that they can do what I'm doing because I'm living proof of it.
Mm-hmm. Did you start practicing a low waste lifestyle before you became a mother or after?
It started before. So when I was younger, so half of my family is from Peru and the other half is from Germany. So I don't really know the German side of my family. They're still in Germany. Mm-hmm. I've met them a couple times, but mostly a lot of my family from Peru immigrated to the US when my mom was around 12. So both my parents are working parents. And so I was practically raised by my grandma and my aunt. So my great aunt and my grandma. Mm-hmm. And so they would often, my aunt especially, who's no longer here, she would just straight up use old rags to clean the house. Mm-hmm. She would often recycle her country crock butter, large gallons of butter, and save them mm-hmm. for her garden, and save old eggshells. And I remember thinking as a kid, why can't my aunt afford napkins? Why can't she afford paper towels? And that may have been part of it, but at the same time, those little actions really planted a seed at a young age. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking and also talking to my mom, because my mom bought paper towels. Yeah. And so, I think in my head, I always wondered, I guess, we are more well off because we have paper towels, but I think it almost became a money issue. But then I think when I turned 8, my school had a competition, like a drawing competition around, just demonstrate recycling. And so when I was 8 years old, something impacted me about this day of recycling where I became like the recycling go-to person in my family. I almost became like a recycling Nazi as a kid. And so like I would tell my mom, like, we can't buy water bottles anymore. We have to buy, reusable bottles. So at a young age, I already had my reusable water bottle. So, my mom's like, you just drink water out of the bottle. And so I just became very cognizant at a young age, like about the animals getting caught in the, the six pack of beer, the plastic things. And, like I said, at a very young age, I just had this huge awareness, like, oh my gosh, like I want our planet to like not deplete. And so I guess it just stuck with, and so a part of that story is I won second place. So it really made an impact on me at a young age.
Yeah. It's funny when like your parents or the people that raise you start introducing these topics, not even necessarily about the planet, but like these habits. It really plants a seed, right? And you grow up thinking, or become more conscious about things. It's so funny that you say that, because when I was a kid, my grandmother would also do that. She would actually reuse a lot of stuff that I consider like, I would say like, why does she do that? Like, to me, it was like something that, I don't know, was related to poverty or something like that, like why, like, it's not like we can't afford to buy something or this or that. But I think, in a way, Latino families, and I think Asian cultures too, communities also do this, right? They reuse a lot of things, which is super funny now because we're all trying to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, growing up, I was almost kind of embarrassed by it. But then in my head, I'm like, why should I be embarrassed about it? I think it's a great story to tell and, to not have shame around it. Like my aunt, I don't remember what kind of cookie boxes they were, but they were like metal tin cookie boxes. And my aunt would save those, but all of her sewing supplies.
Yeah.
So yeah, just growing up with it and kind of normalizing it. Like it's okay to reuse this for something else. That's totally fine.
Yeah. Now, some people say that when you become a parent, you start thinking about all these problems, that can affect your children in the future. For example, the topic with climate change and having enough resources such as water. Now, people even started trading in the futures market for it, So it is a problem. How has motherhood affected how you view these things, your view on these problems?
Yeah, becoming a mother, I feel like it has definitely impacted me even more. I think about future generations. I think about how my daughter will be impacted and, children her age, especially with, the whole diaper situation. Like I was not perfect about the diaper situation for my daughter. I would often look for eco-friendly options for disposables, but I was extremely overwhelmed with just becoming a new mom that I kind of had to just take care of my mental health more than worry about the diapers. But at the same time, I think that when and if we plan for the next child, I definitely want to, since I've experienced it already, I would like to explore using cloth diapers, which is also something I was raised with. My mom, she used cloth diapers with all three of her children, and I admire that so much. Yeah. And I would like to do that as well. Unfortunately, I have to have my husband on board, which is another story, because he doesn't have the same upbringing as me. He wasn't exposed to a lot of this. Like, he's just kind of like he's a white Jewish guy, so he didn't experience the cloth diapers. He didn't see the rags being used for paper towels. So I have to get him on board too. But that's my plan. I would like to do that. Definitely.
how did you like process the whole thing, like when you became a mother and then you kind of, because it takes a lot of time, I can only assume, and you're only thinking about your child and your well-being, and at the same time you're like thinking about the planet, you're thinking about all these things. How, talking about, you know, mental health, how did you adjust, you and your partner, your husband actually, because I assume that he was also, you know, as overwhelmed as you.
Yeah, definitely. It was very difficult for me because I have these really high expectations for myself, like in terms of I need to be able to breastfeed. I need to have a natural birth. I need, you know, just creating all these very rigid, strict kind of narrow-minded thinking.
Yeah.
Which I feel like got me into a lot of trouble because I had imagined this way of being a mom and delivering my child. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And I think that one thing that should have been reassured to me is that everything is going to be okay. And it's okay if you can't breastfeed. It's okay if you can't use, you know, the cloth diapers 100% perfectly.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's okay if you need to have an epidural because you've been in labor for 5 days.
Oh, wow.
So I experienced what is called like prodromal labor, where it's just, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but basically I was in labor for 5 days, and I tried my very best to deliver naturally, but I had to get an epidural, which basically that was at a point where I had to either choose epidural or C-section. So I chose epidural, and it was like, that's what needed to happen. But I really beat myself up over not being able to breastfeed 100%. Like I breastfed and also supplemented with formula so that my daughter could grow and be healthy. It was just literally a matter of like, okay, we need to like feed her.
Yeah.
So that was really stressful for me because I didn't want to have to like use bottles, and I wanted to just kind of, you know, walk around with my daughter and be able to just breastfeed her on the spot. But it became a lot more labor to do that. I had to like pump. There was this whole system that needed to take place. But the whole like thinking about the planet, I think, you know, I kind of had set this intention for myself that I would like to just do the very best I can with purchasing products that, you know, maybe come in a glass jar, or that I can make myself, that's going to be healthy for her and my family, that's not full of chemicals, because there's just like talk about a lot of products being, you know, like I was told I had to use Dreft, which is supposedly like a laundry detergent for babies. And I did use it because I didn't have the knowledge at the time. And apparently like that laundry detergent is the worst. Horrible. It's full of chemicals. I think maybe the doctor told me to use it. So I'm leery about Western medicine too. Like I go to the doctor, but I'm very skeptical about what a doctor tells me. I don't think of it as the final word. And I think growing up, I learned that it was. And so now as an adult, I'm like, yeah, I don't quite agree with that prognosis or what you're telling me to do. I want to, you know, see someone else, and knowing that I have options.
You know, it's funny that you say, you mentioned this whole thing about products that are toxic, because they're technically, you know, if it's full of chemicals and it could be harmful, it's toxic. I noticed that lately in the past, I don't know, 5 years, there have been brands out there that started pushing for, you know, better quality products. Not just for children in general, but also for adults, because I noticed that a lot of them have unnecessary ingredients. For example, I myself am very allergic to everything that is sulfates, you know, parabens. Like I actually experienced perioral dermatitis, which I've been very vocal about in my own accounts. And like, for example, you know, when I have these talks with my mom, she says, I wish I knew better when you were a kid, because I didn't know that by using this type of detergent or this type of lotion or this type of, you know, baby product was actually causing you more allergies, right? But, you know, as a mother, I don't know if you experience this, like when you go out, you know, shopping for things that you need for your daughter or even for yourself, have you noticed that there is more variety, or it's still like pretty much the same products?
I think in the US, the same products are still being sold for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that there is more variety. Like for people, I don't necessarily shop at Target as much as I used to. Believe it or not, a year ago, like I need to stop shopping at Target, even though they have some really amazing brands that they partner with, like Coco Kind and Meow Meow Tweet. I think that's the name of the company. Like those are like some beauty product lines that are really focused on, you know, compostable packaging and whatnot. So, you know, I think that there is definitely being offered, the variety is increasing, but I think accessibility is an issue. So there's only a limited amount of brands that are being offered at Target. However, I feel like the more like eco-friendly brands or something like that, you would have to purchase from their site or from specialty boutique online sites. And that is not necessarily, maybe like not as widely known. So it's kind of more underground, I feel like. And I feel like also there's like weird perceptions of it. So I almost sometimes feel like it could be perceived as elitist, like, oh, like she's trying to do the zero waste thing and like she's doing it perfectly, or the low waste lifestyle. And I think that there is no perfect 100% zero waste. Like I think we all produce waste to a certain extent. I think the first step is just to have awareness that we need to reduce our waste, and then just trying your best. Like we can't, I think aiming for perfection is not good for your mental state, but also it's not feasible. Like with having a kid, like the waste is intense. Like I think, you know, I have a lot of friends who will give me hand-me-downs for clothing, and I'm like, yes, please give them to me, so we can recycle that. So, you know, not only products, but clothing too. So that's something that I'm, you know, that I'm recycling, like my friends' children's clothing. But yeah, I think accessibility is an issue because people who don't have this on their radar might not know where to go. Like they might go to Target for the first step, but Target, there's only like a small section in Target that's like the eco line. And so like, that's even if that person decides to go down that lane. But I think,
but it's still like marked as I feel like it's, you know, like Target, for example, yes, they're like starting to implement products, but like, for some reason to me, it feels, and it seems like sometimes it's, you know, low waste or clean beauty or non-toxic beauty. It's like being commercialized too much. Like, for example, being, you know, vegan or plant-based or being like zero waste. I noticed that some, like on Instagram, like some accounts, it feels like it's just being commercialized rather than, you know, because it's a lifestyle, right? Like you practice low waste, you because you're conscious about the change that we need to push for. But I feel like some people are just doing it for the trends, right? And then in a way, like when you see like, oh, in a section of like CVS or Target, you know, it's like clean beauty. It feels like it's almost just marketing, right? Like, let's just put this there, but like, it should be the entire store. Like we should start worrying about the packaging, about everything, right?
Yeah, they're like, we have our bases covered. We have that section over there, like in the little corner. So it exists, but it's not like, it should be, it should be throughout the store. I think that would be the next step for some company to just make that their own kind of CVS that's zero waste. Because I don't think that these older products are, I mean, who knows? They might go out of business based on whether or not people decide to stop using them.
Now, recycling and, practicing a zero waste or a low waste lifestyle is not that easy to explore. Now, being a mother, how or what major roadblocks have you faced while, bringing sustainability into your household with your daughter or your husband?
I would say the first major one was swapping out paper towels.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hard time, like, not having them. They're kind of like a security blanket.
Mm-hmm.
So talking to my husband about it was a challenge. I kind of had to like plant a seed for him, saying that this was one of my goals and that it will eventually happen for our house. And I think that kind of scared him. And so he likes, I know for him, just for him as a person, he likes to know a little bit beforehand if a change is going to happen. And then, so just to kind of warn him. And so I kind of had to show him the way that it was possible. And so we had like a bunch of old little towels that I used to wash my face with for, I don't know, X amount of years, because I've known him for over 10 years. So probably I don't know, like they must be 8 years old or something. But so I was like, okay, we'll just use these old face towels. These will be I'll keep them in the kitchen, and we have them in a basket. And they're very accessible. We still have a paper towel roll just for emergencies, but I think the big selling point for him was that we were going to save money. Too. I was like, so we don't have to buy like all these paper towels and like feel wasteful about it. So I don't know if he likes it, but he's doing it. So we're all doing it. I think that, I think when people come over, they're a little bit like, oh, where are your paper towels? And I'm like, these are our paper towels. So to me, it's just normal. Like, I'm not embarrassed by it, but I'm curious what other people think.
Yeah.
But
does your daughter ask you, or like, how old is your daughter, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, she's 3.5.
Oh, okay. So, well, she's still very young, but like some kids, when they're 6 or 7, they ask you, like I did, at one point, I asked my grandmother, how come we don't have this? How come we don't?
She has not really asked me about it. I often will make her clean. Like she will use like a non-toxic essential oil based spray that I make, and she sprays, and like I'll often have her be part of the process. Like, okay, we spilled some food, like spray it and clean it. So I'll give her a towel as well. But she's not saying like, how come we don't have paper towels? Like, and I have a basket of cloth napkins at the table. And so she knows that those are our napkins. Like, and she doesn't question like why we don't have a paper napkin.
Right.
So yeah, it hasn't been questioned. She's pretty much just been like growing up seeing like these alternatives already. And since we're in a pandemic, she can't really be like, how come they have paper towels? And she's not there yet. So
yeah. You also talk about mindfulness, and I wanted to ask you this because the term eco-anxiety is a term that is widely used, and it refers to a sense of anxiety and fear, to when you learn or you are, learning about this current alarming statistics about global warming, pollution, for example, when the fire in Australia or the Amazon was happening, I myself was devastated, and I started experiencing anxiety. I was like it's real, right? What can you do to help? Or, I wish I could do more, right? So how can we learn to manage this type of anxiety through mindfulness, through practicing mindfulness?
Yeah, I mean, all of those things are overwhelming. Like, there comes a point where I have to just shut off and not shut off, like forget about it, but just I can become very overwhelmed by it as well, especially because not too long ago we had a ton of fires all around us as well.
Yeah.
In LA. So that was really, really hard because we were having to breathe in a lot of smoke. I try my very best to meditate at least once a day. I think it really helps, and to also just be cognizant of moving my body, especially in the pandemic where we're probably sitting down a lot. We're looking at a screen, and I know like I come across like, I guess, screen fatigue, being in front of a screen or a camera. But I see how important it is to do that right now. But at the same time, I think one thing I do stress to my students and to myself is step away from the screen, take some time to be with yourself. I give like a calm tip every day in class. That has nothing to do with English because I teach English, but at the same time, I think the topic or the subject of English can also be very a reflective one where you're kind of thinking about life and you're thinking about the choices that characters are making and what choices are you making in your life. Like, this is your life. It's not a life that you're living for your parents. It's, how do you want to be perceived in the world? How do you want to make an impact? And it all sounds kind of like trite and like super old fashioned, but these are just really important questions to think about in life.
Yeah. Now, as an educator, how are schools dealing with climate change? Are they introducing the topic to children? Are they trying to teach them about it, or pretty much kind of, they still need to work on this?
I think schools definitely 100% need to work on this. When I first started teaching, I was shocked at the amount of waste that was just the amount of waste that comes from a classroom. Markers, glue sticks, whiteboard markers, all those are in plastic and they get used up and they dry out. And, how do you recycle it? I know that there's a company called TerraCycle. And I know that in my district that I work for, they have earth-friendly clubs. However, I don't know what steps they're taking to address these issues. And I often feel like a lot of the time students are the ones that are saying to the teachers, we need to have this club. We need to do this.
That's cool.
So I think that it varies per city and per district. I think it also has to do with knowledge, like having the knowledge that, we are going through climate change, having the knowledge that, oh, geez, how is this product or this, the packaging going to be recycled? What are we going to do with all this extra fluff that Amazon, these plastic fluff air puff things that Amazon gives us? What happens to that? What's the end cycle of that? But I do feel like schools need to do a better job with that. I personally think there needs, and I think it should be statewide too. It should,
absolutely.
I could talk about this all day. I actually came across a company last night that's called Wisdom Supply Company. And I don't know too much about it, but they're based in San Fran, and they are a huge proponent for less waste in schools and home supplies. And I was just blown away. I said, oh my gosh, I reached out to them last night and I said, I just want to tell you that this has been the answer to a lot of the questions I've had over the last 10 years of teaching. And so they sell products that essentially you build your own binder.
Oh, really?
And you build your own binder, and it teaches kids whoa, I have to build my own binder because that metal part I can keep reusing. It's the actual, I guess, the hardened cardboard that makes the flap that can be replaced. So I was super excited about that company. So I'm just thinking how could I help? How could we get my district on board with doing this? How could we? Because I know for myself over the last 10 years, I will often ask students if they have any binders that they know they're going to throw away. And I keep them in my classroom so that students who can afford to get supplies can reuse them. But now that we're in a pandemic, we're doing everything digitally. It makes me think I don't need to make copies. And I've made so many paper copies with just being a teacher for accessibility for students who, for my special ed students. However, I think that with doing everything digitally now, we don't need those paper copies.
Yeah.
There can be like other alternatives for that. And I talk about the lifestyle with my students, and they see when I was physically in the classroom, they could see me like using a ball jar with a reusable straw. And my reusable water bottle. And so they see all those little details, and they see whether or not like I want them to look. They really pay attention to all of those things, and they'll say like, "Miss, look, I have my water bottle," or "Miss, I have
cool.
a reusable straw." And so it really warms my heart that they are paying attention to those details.
That's so cool. And children are so smart, and they're always observing. You think that they are not paying attention, but they are. And they usually follow by, basically if they see you doing something, they'll follow and do it too, or become curious about it, right? So it's important that teachers also, in a way, start incorporating these things into their classrooms. Now, how about parenting in general? Are there resources out there to help parents educate their children about sustainability, the planet?
I think it starts with the parent.
Yeah.
I also think that parents can learn from their kids. And the same goes with, I grew up in a house where like my mom was like, "I'm the final word" kind of thing, which I get. But at the same time, I almost wish she was a little bit more open to kind of hearing my perspective. I understand that she had a lot going on, but I think that that's one thing that I kind of have in the classroom, and I would like to have that same principle in my home as my daughter grows older, that her opinion matters, and I would like her to teach me, different ways of doing things. And so I think that within a family household, I hope that parents are open and receptive to what their children are learning. If they're learning, "Hey mom, we need to stop buying paper towels," or "Why don't we try composting all of our kitchen scraps and taking them to the local community center where it can be composted." I think, it goes both ways. I think kids can show their parents the way, and I also think parents could show their kids the way. But I don't know of any like resources right off the bat.
Yeah. Plus, I think that a good way to introduce, for example, composting is, because for children, it's fun, right? When you go out and do stuff right outside your home, even if it's like gathering all the scraps and then taking it down the block or 2 blocks down, or even driving away to a center where they do it, it's fun, right? So I feel like through that, they can start introducing this whole thing about recycling, composting, or just, in general, being mindful about your consumption.
And then people also like keeping people accountable within the house. Just accountability. Like I said, when I was growing up, I was like, "Mom, you're using a water bottle," or like, I don't, at a young age, I've just always been aware of that. But yeah, definitely. I think keeping people accountable would definitely help, and just kind of like just having that open mindfulness in the house. Like, "Hey, maybe we should try this a different way." I think also, with my aunt who reused rags to clean her house, she also had a garden. And so, I would often see her composting. So it was like part of her routine. Yeah. But I do think I think social media could be such a helpful tool. And I also think it could be a negative tool. So I know there's a lot of accounts on social media that like teaches people like, what could you do? Like, what is the easiest step that you could do to help the environment, but also help you in the process?
It's also important not to shame, right? Because I also noticed that, for example, on Instagram, if you're sharing your views on something, but in one picture, all of a sudden you post one picture and there is a bottle behind. I mean, you immediately get attacked for it, and it kind of, invalidates everything that you work for. So I feel like in a way, attacking other people too is not the way to reach and educate others. Because we're not all perfect, right? We are all kind of hypocrites in a way, because if we're not consuming, we're driving. If we're not driving, we're flying, right? So it's like there is always going to be a degree of, I guess, we're not perfect. We're always going to be in a way, pollute, or not pollute, but like uh we're gonna mess up, right? We're gonna either buy plastic, we're gonna be forced to like consume this, consume that, and that's okay, right? But I feel like it's important not to shame also.
Totally. I completely agree. Like it's almost like a sigh of relief when you come across an account that tries to do that, but also acknowledges that it's okay to make a mistake, and it's okay if it's not done perfectly. And it's okay if you use that, the straw from whatever because you needed it. It's okay if you forgot your reusable eatware, on the way to the restaurant or what have you. It's part of being human. It normalizes it. And I don't want people to perceive me as like this perfect mom who like only, who is zero waste or what have you, because that's not the case.
Yeah. Now, switching the topic a little bit to self-care, what kinds of things do you do to control stress? I mean, you're an educator, you're a mother, and you're also trying to share content. You must be stressed, right? Your days must be busy in general. How do you deal with stress?
I have to have routines in place. And I think that that's what helps me eliminate stress. Having a morning routine, having a night routine sets me up to know that, okay, if I'm having a really stressful day, I at least have these pillars in my morning and in my night to kind of wrap up my day. I have to drink warm water in the morning. If I don't do it every day, it's okay, but I'm always striving to do that. I try to move in some way or another. Since we've been in the pandemic, I will often resort to going on long walks. I'll do Pilates, I'll do yoga, and I have like a schedule kind of set up with my husband because I work early hours and then he works late into the night. So like I'll do like night routine with my daughter and he'll do morning routine. So like the mornings are extremely precious to me. I always try to set like my intentions or write a list of the goals that I want to accomplish for the day that are work related, but also personal. So not neglecting myself, because it can be very easy to neglect my needs when I'm constantly giving to my family and also to my students. I have over 100 students that I see. Actually, like when we were physically meeting in the classroom, it was daily, but now I see about like over 60 kids a day on Zoom. And then knowing that I'm nourishing myself, I usually will just make like a smoothie, just because it's quick, easy, and I'm going to get those nutrients in. But definitely just having my morning and my nightly rituals have been really helpful. And then also making sure to meditate, throughout the day somehow, have been really helpful, because it can be really easy to ignore that. And like, granted, it's not perfect every day, but that's what I always strive to do. And it really helps keep me grounded, because if I don't take care of myself, then I can't be of service to others and I can't, accomplish my goals. And so as for social media, it's not necessarily a huge priority. If I get to it, it's great. And if not, if I am present, I do want to share, helpful knowledge. I just don't want it to be like this obligation where like, okay, I have to be present on stories because the algorithm's going to go down or whatever, Instagram is projecting to, all these changes that they're doing. Like I want to be authentically present for whoever's, for the audience that I have, for the small audience that I have, and not just feel like I have to pump out a bunch of content that I'm maybe not like feeling passionate to create. So I've noticed for myself, I'll often go through periods where I'm like, oh my God, there's this great idea. I'm going to write it down. When am I going to do that great idea? I don't just like create the idea because I'm feeling forced to. I have to really feel like I want to do it, because then it's going to come out. I feel like people see that. Like if they feel like you're just pumping out content, like you have to be authentic. And I feel like that word authentic has been used so much within the last year or two, but just, I think being present, like I'd rather have someone be happy and present and like share knowledge than to just kind of spit out randomness.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you can tell definitely when you see content that is being forced, it doesn't, in a way, it doesn't really sound honest, or it seems forced. So, I mean, I think it can only harm more your account, right? Rather than.
I was just wanted to say, like, I think for me, I just there's periods where I'm like super duper on because I'm feeling very inspired. And then there's times where I just kind of want to take a step back, but also it has to do with my work life too and family life. Like right now I'm in the middle of finals. So I'm like, I can't really be thinking about like what content I'm going to put out there, because I really want to be present for my students, and I want them to feel like they succeeded or that they're successful in my class. But there's a 2-week break. I might come up with some really good content for my list that I have. I have like a special notebook that I have. So.
Oh, that's cool. You also talk a lot about, I mean, I noticed that you share content on essential oils, which I love, by the way. I love essential oils. I use them to meditate, to do yoga when I can. Are there any brands that you recommend, or you pretty much just explore what's out there?
I think so. There's a huge stigma around essential oils. Like some people really, really like them, or some people are like, what are you doing? I at least that's what I've kind of gathered. I think with essential oils, you have to be very careful about the quality of them. I started using them around the time when I was 15, when I started getting really bad anxiety and panic attacks. Mm-hmm. And I didn't necessarily think about the quality of the essential oil I was using, but I think that it's really important to look at how pure the essential oil is, because there's a lot of brands out there that dilute. I think, I forget the percentage. I think the FDA only requires 5% of the essential oil to be pure, and then the rest could just be full of other oils or fillers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think that it's really important to look at the quality. Right now I use Young Living essential oils. I can't speak for other companies, but that's what I started using I've been using them for maybe about a year. No, almost a year. And I've been really happy with the quality, just based on other essential oils that I've purchased. I've purchased essential oils from Amazon and from other companies, the just random from Whole Foods, from Target. But I think that people should do their own research in terms of what quality oil you're using, because again, that goes into the whole clean beauty thing. How pure is that fragrance, quote unquote fragrance? What is that fragrance that's in the product you're using? And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, because I feel like this umbrella term of clean beauty is so vague. I think people who aren't doing their research might think, oh, I'm going to get that product because it says clean beauty, but you don't really understand if it truly is clean or not, because I feel like a lot of beauty companies are just saying oh yeah, we're clean beauty because that's the trend right now. Yeah. For myself, I try to avoid terms or products that say terms like fragrance, because I don't know what that fragrance is, what is it? Is it a chemical fragrance? And it's funny because earlier you mentioned that you have a dermatitis. I grew up having eczema as a kid. And so I don't know, I'll have to ask my mom if she remembers, but I'm curious what product she used on me. I think she used Vaseline on me. So I think that's what the doctor told her to use. But I'm curious if the products that my mom was using affected my skin in that way. And eventually it went away and it got better. And once in a blue moon, I'll have a flare up. It's actually decreased tremendously since I've been more cognizant of what I put on my face. Like I'll get it on the corner of my mouth. But as a kid, I used to get it like in my elbows and underneath my eyes. And it was just like so embarrassing to have that.
So for me, it was more like, I'm very sensitive for some reason. Like, all right, perfect example. It's like if I'm taking a shower and I'm using a regular shampoo, like for example, Head and Shoulders, Pantene, and all these like very mainstream brands. I kid you not, I'll get out of the shower like red, like with rashes all over, like all over. And this was ever since I have a memory. I've always been very, very sensitive to all kinds of products that are too harsh. And to the point that I had to use like baby products. And even then, like I would still experience like rashes all over. And I feel like with perioral dermatitis, it's like it's constant, just like itching. And that's something that I don't like. Or, you will get like little dots all over your face, or they look like acne, but they feel like acne, but there's really nothing inside, and anything will trigger it, like from makeup to moisturizer to even oil. Sometimes, even though I love essential oils, I try not to put them on my face because I'm just like very, very sensitive. So to me, like the whole thing about beauty, I've learned to pretty much use, a magnifying glass for everything that I buy. Like learn to read the ingredients.
Yeah. Like I remember in high school, I was always stressed out and my eczema would flare up. And I remember thinking, I can't wear MAC lipstick or whatever was popular at the time. Like, I think I really wanted to wear MAC lipstick because my friends had a MAC lipstick. And I remember like trying it out, but then my lips would get irritated and I would be so sad and cry about how I couldn't use the MAC lipstick. But it turns out that like MAC, there's a ton of chemicals in their beauty products. And so I remember thinking, gosh, I have to like buy like lipstick from those hippie brands. Like, like when I was younger, it was like not cool. So I was like, but I did embrace it, but I think I was just more embarrassed about it. I was like, well, this is my skin and I have to, this is something that I have to deal with. Yeah. And, I didn't end up buying the MAC lipstick. I had to find other alternatives because of my sensitive skin as well. And it's actually a benefit that we were just more cognizant and more aware of like what was in those products. Yeah. I think the simpler, the better.
Yep.
In relation to the pandemic, as horrible as it is, there have been a lot of pros with it. Obviously it's not good that we're living in a pandemic, but in terms of like people who are safe and have been healthy, I feel like it's kind of forced people to kind of go into a little cave or cocoon to kind of reflect and think about their lives and what they were doing. And I'm hoping that we'll come out of it. Well, I know we'll come out of it stronger, more knowledgeable, and hopefully have better awareness of the choices that we're making. And, is that company, are they practicing, are things ethical in that company? What are their practices? How are they packaging things? How are they mailing it to you? Yeah. Where companies need to go, I think they need to think about how are things packaged? What footprint are they making in the world? And not only the smaller boutique companies, but just larger companies like Amazon, I know it, like, I feel horrible when I order things from them, but I'm not going to lie and tell people that I don't, because I do. Like, that Amazon was like a blessing for me as a new mom. And, I recently got a package that was in an eco-friendly package from Amazon. So like, kudos to them. But I think that just forcing larger companies to rethink how they do things is also another huge step that we can take, because I don't think people are going to stop using Amazon.
Yeah. It's not going anywhere. I feel like we can just push I mean, one of the solutions would be to push for like the usage of eco-friendly packaging, because in general, now with the pandemic, everybody's starting a business, everybody's like doing their own thing, and that's completely fine. That's awesome. But at the same time, like we're creating more trash. Every time I see somebody doing like, oh, I'm doing my skincare line, my clothing line, that's super cool too. I mean, I love, entrepreneurship. I think, when people are chasing their dreams is amazing. But at the same time, we really have to start thinking like, how can we like coexist with this problem, right? Live, the life that we want, but be mindful about what we're producing.
I know Thinks, period panties. I know they kind of brought it to light. I actually started using them before I got pregnant. But I know there's other companies out there that are coming out with their own period panties as well.
The whole thing about Thinks, it's super, super cool. I love that idea. And I feel like just that could reduce a huge amount of waste, being thrown every single year, because obviously as women, we tend to produce also a lot of trash. And, with the whole period thing, it's such a good product. I honestly, the cup is as well. I love it. But, just the underwear too. It's like a great solution. I love it.
Yeah. And I wish it's funny because I was thinking about my daughter and like having a period. And I remember like having to wear like this big cotton bulky pad and like being like super awkward about it when I was younger. And now I'm so happy that I could just buy period underwear for my daughter and show her a different way. Like, I don't know about the cup, like first thing off the bat would be good, but just introducing her to that, it made me so happy that is a better option for her when that day comes.
Absolutely. I love that. All right. Last question. If you had the power to change one thing to help the planet, what would it be?
I would urge large companies to rethink their processes, and what sort of I would force large companies to think about the impact that they are making on the planet, and force them to do what they probably don't want to do. Yeah, like I would want to force them to do that. The thing that they don't want to do, I would force them to do it. That's
a cool one, because I think about like all the time, like companies could actually manage to produce less waste, but it's just more money, right? Or less money to their. So it's like they could do it, but they like not really.
They're still going to make profit. And that's what is on their mind is profit. And I get that. They're still going to make profit, but I want them to think of the well-being of their consumers. And I want them to think of the well-being of our planet and the impact that they're making.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be like changing people, but we can't change people. But, but yeah, that's definitely, I would force them to do the thing that they don't want to do.
Yeah. Awesome. I like that. I like that answer. Thank you so much, Nicole, for doing this interview. Thank you for listening to this episode. You liked what you heard? Tell me what you liked in the review section. And if you want more episodes like this, please share your suggestions. After this episode, the conversation continues in our new Facebook group. The question of the day is, do you know of any brands that have joined the eco-friendly movement? Let me know by joining us at the Invernadero Mind Facebook group and share your thoughts. I can't wait to see you there.